So, what did you think? Let's rank this film on the Cageometer.
Vince, where does Bad Lieutenant, Port of Call, New Orleans rate on your Cageometer? By the way, the original one is called The Bad Lieutenant, which I think the working draft name was The Bad Lieutenant, Port of Call, New Orleans. That's me with like Michael Scott's like, some companies still know how to.
All right. So movie, I really enjoyed the movie up until the ending. There were parts that I felt dragged on. I just felt like there were some scenes that we've already talked about that didn't really add a lot of value. It just ended up making the film feel like it was dragging, and it could have been a little bit tighter, but overall not bad. Still pretty decent story and whatnot. I was enjoying just how kind of chaotic some of the scenes between Cage and the drug dealers were. But then the fucking ending happened, and it was like the most cheesy, shoehorned ending, and it really let me down by them not like clearly saying or not killing him. I mean, maybe he is dead, like you said. Maybe this whole thing is just a hallucination as he's dying, but that's not clear if it is. So yeah. I can't say that it is. We talked about it. I think they did a test screening, it tested poorly, and they rewrote the ending and shoehorned this bullshit in. Better than
I could also see Werner Herzog being like, I don't like that it ends badly. Let's make sure things end well for this. And the guy was like, well, did you see the original Bad Lieutenant? And he's like, what the hell is that movie?
So all that being said, right, like as awful as this ending was, still better than the ending of Dark, which is the same much.
Yeah.
So I can't be an ass and give it anything close to that. So I honestly would have given this probably a 7 if it weren't for that ending. But because that ending has knocked it down to a 5 for me. I don't think it was an awful film. Definitely not the worst film we've watched, but that ending really ruined what I thought could have been a little more fulfilling,
like a moral to the story,
Right. Yeah.
Like you could just fuck up your life nonstop for the entire duration of the film, and just everything just works out for you. That's not how life.
Yeah. So as far as Cage, he had some very cagey moments. He couldn't fucking decide whether he wanted. It appeared like he couldn't decide whether he wanted to stick with the accent or not. Having talked with you guys more, I think you're right. He probably did pick and choose when the accent came in based off of certain things that were going on. Mm-hmm. So I'll give him a 6. I thought his physicality in this movie really kind of swayed me to go a little bit higher than I probably would have if it hadn't been for that. Just because I really felt like as he's devolving and getting more and more into the drugs, you start seeing it transform on his body between it, we talked about, he gets hunched more, he becomes very stiff, he's limping, he has those little subtle cues where if he moves a certain way, he expresses some discomfort. Yeah. And then even like you said, you brought up a good point, like the numbing of the heroin is probably why he did start having that accent. So I really feel like he put some thought into the character and how he wanted to perform. Cagey as fuck at times. His ad-libbing, definitely them letting him just ad-lib stuff really let him go off the rails, but I'll put that on the director and not so much on him. So yeah,
could I get my prescription, please?
So yeah, I'll give him a 6 out of 10. I there were times where I forgot it was him, and then there were other times where I was like, oh yeah, this is definitely Nick Cage on screen. So a 5 and a 6 respectively.
Nigel, where do you put this on your Cageometer?
Sorry, I always jump right in. I feel much the same as Vince does. In fact, I'm gonna kind of give the same ratings except scaled up a little bit more, because I was actually really enjoying this movie. As it did feel kind of slow. It felt overly long. We mentioned like some of the scenes just seemed pointless, but it seemed to work for me really well. Like the way that those scenes were included in the movie just kind of fit what he was going for with this movie. It kind of feels like he's trying to go for a realistic take of stuff. So you kind of have little slice of life interactions with this. I don't know if this is necessarily a character study of the main character, but seeing little facets of how he reacts to things in his life. Once I kind of jumped on board with that, I was really enjoying it. And I actually really liked seeing things start to go really wrong for him. Like just see how much of a shitbag he is. And having all these bad decisions start to catch up with him and just sort of snowball. And I was really enjoying that buildup, but then the ending of the movie had to come and basically undo all of that. And it's completely unrealistic. And I don't know if it's, I don't want to be like, oh, I was expecting them to do this and they didn't do it, so I didn't like it that much. But it really feels like the movie took a complete tonal shift that is counter to what it was trying to establish with this sort of realistic, story of what happens if your life spirals out of control and you're a dirtbag. But it just magically all worked out for him. And then, I guess they sort of tacked on like, well, maybe, he's back. He fell off the wagon again, or he never actually quit and whatever. He's still doing bad stuff. So it's just going to be a cycle that's going to repeat until it ultimately goes wrong for him. But I would have wished we would have just seen that go wrong for him in the movie and have it end with him getting shot or something, or losing his job, or who knows, whatever. Some kind of consequence for his actions instead of having everything just work out for him. So as I was watching it, I was thinking like this movie is an easy, well, not easy, but eventually like an 8 out of 10 for me. But with that ending, it drops it down to a 6 because it sort of, I enjoyed a majority of the movie, but I think it just sort of fell down on itself at the end there and was really like, what was the point? Like you do this really good job of crafting this realistic feeling story of this guy and seeing all of his, how his actions lead to his downfall. And then the downfall doesn't happen. It just, everything works out great for him in literally one scene. Like it's like you said, it felt like a cartoon. Like his boss was like, hey, we got the guy. And
it was so cheesy.
It's just
and it's
so
bookie just like, hey, look, here's all the money you won. Like spreading out $10,000 of like fresh bills for him, and like
right in front of the fucking cops in the station.
It was like the ending of a comedy, Yeah, and the guy going, whoa, we're cool, man. We cool, right?
Cool, man.
Yeah.
Cool.
Like, it felt like something on a Naked Gun. Like,
you expected OJ to pop up.
I think Werner actually said that he kind of intended it to be sort of a comedy, and I'm like,
okay,
you did. You took Bad Lieutenant and made it into a comedy.
Well, to be fair, he never saw the first one, so
I mean, that kind of
it's
feels
always
like
best
a Werner
if you've
Herzog
never
movie. Like,
seen a movie. Name your movie after it. Fuck.
This does seem like the kind of comedy Werner Herzog would make, I guess, where it's
hilarious.
It's funny, and maybe that's the comedy. Is like comedy is the unexpected. So maybe like, oh, you didn't expect that. Everything worked out fine for him.
I guess.
But it just kind of feels like the rest of the movie was a waste then. Like, what was the point of us watching him do all this horrible shit, in a not feel good story to just have it end on sort of a feel good note, I guess, even if it's completely unrealistic. So yeah, I'll give it a 6 out of 10 because of that. If it had not done that and we'd seen some kind of consequence for his actions, or at least not had a completely out of left field, like happenstance meeting with the guy from the beginning of the movie who then takes him to the aquarium, and they, might as well just fucking gone out for ice cream or something, and like it would have been an 8 out of 10 for me. But much like with Dark, the ending just sort of craps over the rest of the movie and then ruins it and leaves it on a sour note,
Yeah.
And again, it just feel like it really, to me, it felt like a test screening happened. Audiences didn't like how down the movie was, and so they reshot an ending, and if that's not what happened, that's what it feels like, which is just as bad. If it's like it feels that jarring.
I think that was one of the big complaints with the original Bad Lieutenant from audiences was like, this is such a nihilistic, like dark, unnecessarily dark film, and you just like, we follow around this guy, watching him ruin his life for the whole movie, and then he does something kind of good, and then he dies, right after doing something good. And I think maybe that was some of the impetus for creating a happy ending of this. I feel like there has to be a dark ending of this somewhere on a cutting room floor.
Even if it was on paper, like, was it in the script that's did it end this way in the script? Does that fall on the scriptwriter, or does it fall on the studio requiring an ending, a happier ending, or does it fall on
I wonder if it was the producers,
funny ending?
Or maybe
I
it
guess
was
we
like,
don't know.
Maybe it was like Dog Eat Dog, where they just ran out of time and they were like, "Well, we got to wrap it all up."
Could be.
Maybe. But I can see why the original director of the original Bad Lieutenant was like, hope these guys all fucking die in a fire. Like, they didn't get what we did with that first movie, you know? They didn't get the point of it, you know? Which I feel like there's an importance to those kind of stories, you know? Tell dark stories, but have a meaning behind it, you know? Like,
there's a strong moral to Bad Lieutenant. There is not a strong moral to Bad Lieutenant. Port of Call, New Orleans.
Right.
So again, like you said, even if it was an ending where like he OD'd or something and this was all in his head, and then they just sort of make it clear that he died and his life turned out shit in the end, and that's what happens when you get involved with this kind of crap. As for Cage himself, I really enjoyed his performance, except for the things we pointed out with the accent. That's really what bugged me, and I don't know what they were going for with it. Like, in the moment, it really took me out of it. Like, again, I was second guessing myself. Like, did he always do this? Was I just missing it, or does this accent just come and go? And even if it was, you know, trying to put on the slurred speech of having your mouth numb, like, you can do that, I think, without having a weird, you know, whatever they called that, the North Atlantic accent, transatlantic accent they all had in the 40s, you know, whatever. Like, he didn't have to throw that on there, you know. Again, it was an enjoyable performance for me, so I'll give it a 7 out of 10, because I think he did really well in the physical aspects of things. Like we pointed out, you can tell as the movie goes on, he's getting more and more strung out and more tired and in more pain, and then that just sort of compounds with doing more and more drugs. And the moments when he does drugs kind of feels like he's actually doing them, especially the crack pipe scene when he's like fucking laughing like a maniac and going off with Big Phaeton and the boys. And when he like just yells at the old ladies and stuff, which again we said was unscripted stuff, but to that detriment, some of that stuff kind of comes out of left field and feels out of character for the character that he was playing for the rest of the movie. So I think it can kind of hamper the performance. It wasn't a full, you know, it's not like it's a 9 or a 10 out of 10 where you could believe this is the same character working through this story realistically. There's parts where it kind of pulls you out of it and kind of ruins the illusion and feels like, oh, okay, they just let him go Nicolas Cage for the sake of going Nicolas Cage in this because it's you know, maybe because it's funny, or because Werner Herzog wanted to do it because it thought it was a comedy, or because we just wanted to show him become unhinged. But it just kind of feels a little bit out of character for this character, who I think he did a really good job playing through most of the movie. You know, it was a believable scumbag.
Yeah.
So,
it's that thing with like Werner Herzog saying that he wanted to turn it over to the genius of Cage, you know.
Yeah.
And
which we've mentioned it before.
I think some of his cagiest moments are like could have reined him in a little bit.
Yes.
Yeah, and we've mentioned that before on the show. Like, the good directors can do that. They can pull him in, you know, a little bit instead of just letting him take off and do it, because as good of an actor as he is, actors don't always have the best ideas for what a character should be doing, and you know, don't play it up in a way that's consistent. It's a director's job to make sure that's a consistent performance throughout the rest of the film, you know, because they're shooting things out of order and, you know, whatever. So I think just letting him take the reins off definitely led to some memorable moments, but kind of impacted the overall performance if you take it on as a whole.
Yeah.
I mean, ultimately, he's, you know, Cage is just a paintbrush for the director to paint whatever masterpiece they want to put together. So it's like, it's kind of your job to figure out how to make him give you the performance that you want. But in this movie, it really felt like, I don't know, maybe it was just for authenticity or what, but like he just kind of let Cage do his thing in certain moments, and in other moments he's very subdued. And I think it was to show like when he's high and when he's not high. He's off the rails when he's high.
Yeah.
I guess I'll jump in with mine. So I will echo exactly what you guys said. I feel like the movie was a 7 for me until the ending. And I feel the same way, where it's just like, what were they trying to tell us with that ending? Like, what was the moral to this whole thing? Like, just be a bad person for... 6 months straight, and then, you know, and steal evidence and frame people and try and coerce a kid to not fucking do his best in a football game so that you can win some money. And like, it's fucking crazy. I wonder how often that happens, because that was not a huge sum of money. Like $5,000 is not a huge sum of money, and he's like shaking down this kid for like a little bit of weed. And like, I wonder how often, you know, somebody loses $100,000 on a game and they're desperate as hell, so they track down this kid and fucking try and get him to throw the game and stuff. Like, but like, what? Yeah. So what were they trying to tell me with this movie? That suddenly things will just work out just perfectly for you if you're a piece of shit for 6 months straight, and then you'll be promoted to captain, and you'll get this beautiful wife and get a house, and it just
like
felt
not every
so,
movie needs the Hollywood ending, you know?
Yeah. It felt so forced, and like you said, I feel like it was forced upon them in some way, or it was Werner Herzog being Werner Herzog and just being like, well, I want a happy ending, so we're going to put a happy ending in this. And I don't know. But maybe he read the script and was like, oh, this is a really down ending. Let's give him a happy ending to this thing. But that also showed that he still deals with addiction sometimes.
He's still a bad guy, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he still has his moments. But he's such a good guy because he read that poem, and the poem said, did he wash me when I'm sleeping? And then he wonders if fish can dream.
Like, is it a metaphor? Like, he feels like he's a fish trapped in a little cup, you know? You can't get out of it. You could have done something with that in the movie, you know?
Yeah.
But to bring it up at the end and make you go, oh, wait, that was really supposed to be a profound impact on this guy and this story.
Yeah.
So,
well, it's kind of like, you know, for me, this movie was like, you had a pretty good, like, breakaway dunk, and then you just decided to be too fancy at the end and you missed it completely and it bounced off the rim and everybody laughed at you. So I gave it a 5, which might be harsh. I feel like it's a pretty solid movie just until that ending. And I'm sure there's some people who were really happy with that ending because they didn't want to see it end badly for him. And maybe you started to feel for him over the course of the film, but I didn't. I thought he was a bad person through the whole movie, and we shouldn't feel good for him. It really
felt like that was the point. Like, he's not a sympathetic character.
Yeah.
You know.
As far as Cage, I will echo a lot of the things that you guys said. I always feel like when I go last, I'm kind of like, like just saying the same stuff. But
we can change it up.
Yeah, we
I just I'm gonna go with a 6 on that because I feel like his physicality was amazing. The things that I feel like knock it down from a better rating are the same things that you said, with the weird voice, which I do think that he was intentionally trying to make it seem like his mouth was numb, and that's just how he talks, and that's how he talks. But he also kind of puts on a thing, like he talks different when he's when he's talking like that. But maybe it's just because he's high. I don't know. But I don't know what they were going for there. And then the super cagey moments were some of my favorite moments in the whole film. So I can't knock him down because of those, because I love them so much. And those are the things I'm going to come back to watch later on and be like, oh, remember when he stuck a gun in that old lady's face and screamed at them and said, oh, you fucks, I hope you die. That's the stuff that's like, I will remember that. I'm not going to remember any of the serious moments through this film. Him high on crack, laughing like a fucking lunatic and talking about a naked elk jumping over shit. And like,
man.
Those are the moments I'm going to be searching up on YouTube later on, like 5 years from now, being like
you'll see those in the highlight reel of Nick Cage moments, you know, not everything else in this performance.
Yeah, exactly. So I do feel like he did a really great job making me believe that this guy was, you know, because he said he never took drugs or anything like that throughout this film. Everything was completely from him. So the sweatiness, the way he's moving, his hunched over back, his just demeanor and in general was all from him. And I think he did an amazing job with that. And he also, like, the glassy eyes, I don't know if he put in contacts, but you can definitely tell in certain points where his eyes are just really glassy, and maybe it went back to what he did in Deadfall, where he wore those contacts in that, which he also brought that to his character in that. So I definitely feel like Nick Cage has spent some time around drug addicts throughout his life. and knows exactly how they act. I mean, being an actor in the types of films that he's acted in throughout his career, I definitely can see he's probably had a lot of firsthand experiences, not just from making the movies and studying drug addicts, but like actually just having drug addicts walk up to him on the street. Because they're like, you're just like me, man. You're crazy,
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought he did an amazing job capturing that. But like I said, there are a few things that knock him down a few pegs. So 6 out of 10.